Hey everybody, welcome back. Rip City Real Talk, and it's episode 9, which is kind of crazy. Greg
We
Moshkow and Anthony Blaylock, how you doing, man?
doing good, buddy. It's 9 weeks, man. I can't believe we're already, past the quarter mark of the season. Everything's looking good. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to keep doing this with you.
Yeah, it's been great, man. It's a lot of fun. If anybody's not following us on social media, you should go to Twitter, and it's Rip City Real Talk. Same thing with Facebook. And if you want to check out the YouTube, I don't know if you're watching on the YouTube, but we recommend you do. It's under Rip City Real Talk is the name of the channel. So go ahead and hit us up there.
Yeah, subscribe, follow, share, help us out. We're getting towards our goal of 100 followers and likes on Facebook slowly.
Yeah.
So eventually we're gonna have some free stuff we're gonna give out. I'm thinking a beanie, so I'm gonna announce the prize, a little Blazers beanie, if we can get to 100 likes and follows. So if you follow us, you want to share, get more people to follow us, so that you have a chance of the raffle to get a free beanie. Do it because you can get it. It can happen.
Man, I wish I was eligible. I'm not, but I wish I was.
Nope, sorry, bud.
I love me some Blazer swag, even though I never wear it on the pod.
I had to dig this old hat up because Nicole get mad at me if I don't start wearing the stuff she gets me.
I love that
Yeah,
hat.
old
All
Rip
right,
City,
man.
yeah.
So it's Saturday, the day before the Super Bowl. So, the Blazers, we just finished the week, and we're going to go through the whole thing here in a minute, and we'll talk all about it. But we always talk about 500 or better. And guess what this week was?
500 or better. That's kind of the motto of the pod, right? If the
Yep.
team can go 500 or better throughout the week, you're doing good. That means you are continuously being 500 better on the season, and we are. With 2-2 on this road trip, it's the longest road trip of the season. We just capped it off today, so we get to go home now. That's tough. This is the first time we've been on the East Coast. Well, in the Eastern time zone, the entire season. So guys had to fight through that amongst all the other stuff, the injuries, things like that to go through. So yeah, it's been a fun week. We're gonna have a fun week to talk about.
Yeah, I think we are. And I mean, we can start with shouts and pouts, and I'm happy to go there. We can go, we're going to go pretty quick through the games this week. We're going to kind of change the pod format a little bit. So why don't you start with shout and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I got some shouts and pouts. So my shout, number one shout, super stoked on, is the young guys stepping up. Just right off the bat, with the injuries that we've had to our starters, the bench has had to become our starters, which means our bench becomes guys that should never be seen in the court in their first couple seasons, or if they have, they've only played sparingly so far, so they're going to get big roles, and I think everybody's stepped up. We may not have won every single game, but they've stepped up. So we'll get more in detail with that, but that's my number one shout.
Okay.
My pout, what is my pout going to be? Just injuries, man. Pout is these guys got to figure out how to stay healthy and take care of themselves.
Yep.
I mean, I know it's not all their fault. Obviously, there's all the stuff that comes on and the physicalness of the game, but yeah, it's tough. It just seems like every single day you're like, oh, who's gonna play or who's not gonna play? It's just crazy. Like Bane missed a game, had Derek Jones out for a while. Covington's been missing games. Obviously, the long term stuff. So just trying to get through those bruises while we keep afloat until we get our main stars back.
Definitely. I agree. It's been tough. I mean, the long-term injuries are one thing. You can work on these rotations, but when guys are going in and out, like you got Covington missing time, Derek Jones is missing time, and those are our best defenders, I think. So it's been really hard to be cohesive. And we've talked about that on the pod several times, but hopefully some health in the second half here. Shouts. Oh man. Okay. So shouts big time. Right now, Nas Little dropped 30 in the Bucks game, and it was not just. It was first of all, 30 points in an NBA game is really hard to do, right? That's a really upper echelon score for a guy who's in his third year in the league, right?
Right.
My thing with Nas was he was hitting shots, but he was also driving and beating his defender regularly, and he did that in the first half. He started that game. He was doing that against Giannis and some of those guys. Now, most of his points did come in the second half, but he looked legit, man, and it looked really good. So shout out to Nas for a 30. Boy, my pout. So I've been trying to pick on this one, and I'm not trying to like overstate it because we've talked about it before, but the Melo shot choices and the Melo long twos and the post ups. We'll talk about today's game, but there's some shot selection issues that I still think are questionable at best. How did you feel this week?
I'd agree with that. I think like Nas goes back into the umbrella of the young guys playing good. I think this is Nas' second year, granted, but
okay. The bubble
but still, it's still great to see. I mean, he's one of those guys that we brought in to be super athletic. He was going to kind of be another, call him what you want, Derek Jones, Mo Harkless type of
Yeah.
player, a guy that can do some damage down by the rim and hopefully be long enough to be sustainable on defense. But the shooting was, it came out of nowhere. I mean, I know
Yeah.
he did all right. He shot decent before he got hurt last year. I mean, nothing to write home about, but respectable enough to where they felt comfortable giving him some decent minutes before he got hurt. Man, he came out and just was on fire against Milwaukee. It seemed like, I'm like, wow, that's a smooth looking jumper. Like he hit it with no hesitation and the confidence. And for him, that's huge because he's kind of going to be that next guy up whenever we have an injury to Covington and Jones. Like he's the next big bodied wing that's going to get that small forward role. Obviously, we've started him, so he needs to be able to do that. And I was impressed. I was. It sucks that he got hurt, and it sucks that he got hurt at the end of the game on a play that realistically probably didn't need to happen. He got chased down and kind of got bumped. And I mean, Milwaukee was already handily taking care of business at that point. So it's a tough injury for us to see. When you lose guys to injuries, these guys have to play those longer minutes. It's too bad, but he'll be back soon. Doesn't sound like there's anything serious. He's kind of been questionable every single game so far. Hasn't played since the Milwaukee game, but yeah, man, I'm stoked. I'm stoked for what he can do.
He looked legit. He looked like he could be a wing of the future. We've talked about that before, right? We wish we had a Kawhi Leonard. We wish we had a Jimmy Butler, somebody that we could pair with Dame and CJ. We may just have to find that through the draft or find it by taking a shot on a guy like Derek Jones and using Stotts. Stotts' coaching is better than people think with young guys. He's a very good developer of young talent.
Yes, I got a lot to talk about with Stotts and what people have been saying on social media. We'll touch on that. So yeah, I mean, that's great. And I agree with you, Pouts. I think we'll talk more about the Melo shot selection. He's actually scored 20 points in the last 2 games, over 20 before today. But still, I agree. It's the type of shot selection, and we've talked about it all year. It's going to be very hit or miss. So that being said, I think we should just dive right into Milwaukee. We'll kind of touch on it. My biggest point of the Milwaukee game was the Nas Little stuff. So I'm glad you brought that up with your shout, because I think we didn't have high expectations. We said it last week that we were going to come into this one, and this was probably not going to be one of the pluses in our 500 week. This was going to definitely be one of the losses. Just health. They haven't been playing great. Granted, Milwaukee's kind of just been floating above 500 most of the year themselves. They really haven't looked good. I think now they're second in the East, granted, but it hasn't been impressive for them. They haven't really figured it out. They're still working in new pieces and things like that as well. But at the end of the day, they got the MVP.
Yeah.
Enough said. Drew Holiday is one of the best defensive guards in the league, and Chris Middleton's just like that guy that you never hear of that puts up 20 something a night. Sneaks in there out of nowhere and gets all-star, accommodations and things like that. So tough team to play when banged up the way we were.
Yep. And I think the fans were fine with, we expected to get kind of beat up. We're very undermanned. We don't have the long, lengthy defenders that game to really throw at Giannis. So we knew it was going to be trouble going into it. The other thing is, Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton, I mean, their defense is so nasty and they can blitz and do all kinds of stuff that we just kind of expected Dame to get so much pressure, right? And he did. And that's totally fine. So we kind of throw that game away. We rest Dame in the second half. We give the young guys some minutes. What did you see from the young guys just real quick in that game that you liked?
Just confidence right off the bat. I mean, we talked about it with Nas. There was no hesitation when the shot was there for him to take. He just pulled up and take it. You see a lot of these young guys get into these lineups and these rotations, and they start getting some minutes, and it seems like they're always trying to pass the ball to Dame or to Carmelo, or even in seasons past, it'd be like, well, CJ's running the second unit. A lot of it tries to go to him. Hopefully so, but. Yes. I mean, for me, just right off the bat, the confidence, and we talked about it with Nas just in that game alone, but Anthony's looking great. Yeah. He looks more decisive. He looks like he's kind of finally taking that turn to where he's just going to start taking shots and driving and doing different things. Still working on a lot of stuff with him, but he was also one of those guys who was a little timid when he would get his minutes and try to pass the ball up. Or granted, when he was out there by himself with, the other garbage unit or some other like younger guys, he was kind of the main focus and he would take shots, but he's doing it now with these other guys and these vets that are out there with him. Yeah. And that's all of them. Gary Trent. I mean, you can go down that list. We talked about LEV. We'll talk about him in a moment, but yeah, I just seen it from everybody that's getting these extended minutes that normally wouldn't get the time. It looks impressive to me.
Yeah, it's definitely impressive. The confidence is big with these guys, and I don't understand what's going on. I mean, Anthony Simons, Gary Trent, Harry Giles at times, they come in and they play really well. They show you flashes of, wow, these guys are going to be really potentially good if they get the minutes. And the thing is, all these guys are really young. And I like having young guys with upside on our team. It's nice to watch. It's been fun. It's not fun in the wins and losses column. I think that it makes for a lot more. I mean, fans have to have a realistic expectation that we have one guy out there in Dame and Cantor too. Cantor's been really good this year. We have two guys that are playing at a high level. Everybody else has good nights and bad nights, but those two guys in and out have been rock stars.
It's the growing pains that anybody's going to go through. Gary got a lot of minutes last year because of the injuries. I mean, last year was just as bad as this year. And so when you think about the injuries that forced him into a role and then what he turned into throughout the year, then we went on the hiatus. And obviously we saw what he did in the bubble. That is because of the experience and the minutes he's getting and that confidence that he has. He's like, I got to go out there and put up buckets now because I'm being relied upon to be this bench rotation guy with Hood getting hurt and all these other guys. And now we're seeing it transcend into this season where he could easily start on probably any team in the NBA right now. And that's because he got that time. And I'm hoping we get to see something similar with a guy like Anthony Simons. With this time, he really starts to become that combo guard off the bench that we can start getting that 10 to 15 points consistently from. Eventually, obviously, we're not going to have Carmelo, and who knows what happens with Hood, and et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to have to rely on these young guys to score. And yeah, it's just been awesome to see them come out with that kind of confidence, firing up shots and getting this experience and the team staying afloat in the standings.
Yeah, it's been nice. I mean, at this point, 500 a week is good, right? And we talk about that on the pod all the time, but this week was tough. We had two teams that were top in the East. I mean, obviously Milwaukee's not top record-wise, but we know what they can do, right? Yeah, and Philadelphia was legit this year. So let's keep going through the game. So we lost to the Bucks. We kind of knew that was going to happen. We knew that the Wizards. We called this Wizard game a winnable game. What happened?
We did, because we knew Milwaukee was going to blitz us. They outshot us. They just out-dominated us on the defensive side because they just had better players and healthier players. So great. But then we went into Washington, back-to-back, mind you, second of a back-to-back for us.
Yeah.
Here's the thing with Washington, and this is the thing that worried me a little bit about them, is just they can't stop anybody. They have no defense. I mean, Westbrook's, he's a gnat. He's pesky, but he's not really a great defender. Beal's big enough, he can defend, but he's not a great defender. And outside of those guys, I mean, who's going to be down there blocking shots and doing a lot of stuff? Nobody. So we knew we would be able to score, or we'd hope we'd be able to score. That was kind of one of the things going in there, that you just had to keep up with them. I was worried about our defense stopping them. Westbrook and Beal are obviously two perennial all-stars. Beal right now, #1 scorer in the league. They scare you a little bit. They just beat Brooklyn because I think they scored, it was something crazy like
149 to 147, I think.
But they scored a certain amount of points in like the last 6 minutes of the game that even put themselves in a position to win that game. And it can just happen so fast. And we saw so many spurts of it. We get up again by our normal 16, 17, sometimes 20 points. And then immediately they're just right back in the game. They got within 4 points at one point, and, we put them away, and that's fine and dandy. But it was just tough. It was scary kind of going into that game thinking how we already have the injuries. We didn't have a lot of guys playing in that game, and we had to deal with Beal and Westbrook, and they got theirs. They scored 54 combined. I talked about the keys of the game being 50, hold those two guys down and try to let somebody else beat you on the team, and paid off. We held them just enough in check to get that win.
Yeah, the minutes were crazy in that game. So I just looked up the minutes. So Covington played 37. Hood played 35 minutes, which is sneaky. Cantor played 36, and then Gary Trent Jr. played 40 minutes against Washington. I mean, that's a night, and he had 26 points. So kudos to him. He played really well that night.
Yeah. That was the story of the game. I mean, we knew that. We talked about Rui Hachimura, whatever his name is, being really only the guy that could do anything, and they held him in check the first half. He came out and hit his season high, at least in threes, and he got a season high in scoring as well. But most of that damage was done in the second half, and we never really relinquished the lead at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was happy. It was still second out of a back-to-back. It's still a road trip in the East. You don't want to take any game for granted. With the injuries, you're going to take every win you can get, and so we did think that would be a winnable game. And everybody stepped up again, and that was definitely a winnable game, and we won it. So hats off to the team. They fought hard, but not nearly as hard as the next game.
Yeah, so we thought Washington was going to be a winnable game. We were in fact, all it's funny because Dame got ruled out, I think a couple hours before tip-off, right? He had been questionable for the Philadelphia game, and then Derrick Jones Jr. was also questionable. And then not Nasir Little also got ruled out. So all three of these guys get ruled out, and fans are just thinking, okay, rest everybody. Let's calm down. Let's play these young guys a bunch of minutes, and we're gonna lose. And that did not happen at all. I don't know what happened. It was wild. I watched the whole thing and I still don't know what happened.
Well, I mean, okay, let's put it this way. They didn't have Ben Simmons. That's
Yes.
arguably the best player. I mean,
Yep.
obviously Joel Embiid is an
Great.
all-star center and an MVP candidate this year, but they didn't have Ben Simmons. So defensively, they lose a lot there. Seth
They do.
Curry played 12 minutes. He was coming back off an injury. He's their best three-point shooter, a team that does not shoot a lot of threes. And again, we've seen him in Portland. He can be a pesky defender. So they really
Yes, he can.
lost a lot of their starting unit. I think they had a crazy record where they were like, I want to say it was 11-4 or something with their entire starting
Wow.
unit, or I think they only lost like one game. And then they were 4-7 without their starting unit intact.
Uh-huh.
So obviously there's two different sides of that. When they have their guys playing and they're healthy, they're unstoppable. When they don't, we saw what can happen. They can definitely be beatable. We
Sure.
talked about it a little bit. The thing that really stands out to me is just their 3-point shooting.
Yeah.
They already, we talked about it in the keys of the game. They're 26th in the league in attempts and makes. So they don't shoot a lot and they don't make a lot of threes. So which is feeds right into what we're good at because we're not good at perimeter defense. So it helped a little bit when it came to slowing them down.
Yeah, and Embiid kind of got his, right? He had a massive game. Did he have 31 at halftime?
31 at halftime, I believe. He ended with 35, I think.
Yeah. So, okay, so that game we come in, listen to the minutes on this one. Covington played 35 minutes. Melo played 31, Cantor 34, and again, Gary Trent Jr. was our leading minutes guy at 38 minutes per game. He had 24 points. If Gary's going to score 25 points a game, which he did over that 2-game stretch, that's an incredibly good player, right? Like Gary Trent Jr. is a plus defender. I don't think he's as good as people think he is. I think he's a good defender. But if he's giving you 25 minutes a night, these Blazers would be really tough to beat if he was doing that consistently, right?
Oh yeah, I mean he had to step up with CJ. This is one of the big focal points of every fan that's out there right now on the trade CJ train is whether or not if you trade CJ, can Trent step up, get his money that he's going to get, that you're going to give him, and then have him perform with that time. And so far so good. It's a lot of threes still, which is great. I mean, if he's going to shoot 45% from the 3-point line, keep taking them. He has that. I don't know, that pattern of just hitting like 2 or 3 threes in a row, like within a couple minutes in the game, to either get us right back in the game or to really push us up if we get close, to blowing a lead. So that's fine and dandy. I still don't think it's something you should be relying on.
It's just not sustainable, right?
I don't feel like it's sustainable. I mean, there's shooters who shoot. I mean, it's definitely sustainable to some extent. Like we've seen Klay Thompson continue to do things like that. We've seen a lot of guys do it, but I just worry that it in the long run he can't do a lot of other things. And people can say, oh, you can shoot in the paint, you can drive. No, he can't. Shut up. No, we can't. He can't. I've seen it.
I think Klay is a great comparison for Gary Trent. I think Klay is a little better defender than Gary is. He's a little bit bigger, but that quick shooting, get hot, score 25, and people don't even realize that you hit 6 threes in a game. That to me, Klay Thompson is the perfect player mold. I do think that he complements Dame a little bit better, but his playmaking is nowhere near what people think it is. And I've watched him dribble and drive, and it's not as pretty as people think it is either. He scores, but he's very young, so maybe that's going to get better.
Maybe, but it's fine because he's a shooter, and that's his niche, and that's what he excels at. He doesn't have to be, a guy that can drive in the lane and get contact and draw free throws and finish at the rim it doesn't have to be that. That's Dame. Dame's your superstar. That's what he does. He's a good complement to Dame because he can sit there and hit a jump, like assist a spot up through the guy in his face, and he can do it consistently.
Yeah.
So good on him. And we need him to be able to do that. We talked about, they're not going to take a lot of threes. That's just not Philly's game. Embiid down in the paint, right outside the paint. I mean, it was free throw line, jumper after jumper after jumper
Yeah.
after jumper. And eventually, I just think that I mean, I know Embiid had the knee thing, and I don't know if that contributed to him slowing down in the second half. He still played 35 minutes. It was a sneaky 35 to me
Yeah.
because I felt like he disappeared in the second half. And
Sure.
I know he played a lot in the first half, in the second quarter, because he only played a couple minutes in the first quarter before he went to the locker room and came back. But
Mhm.
for 35 minutes, that tells you that we shut him down for the most part in the second half. They started throwing doubles at him a lot, and they started really making him work to score instead
Yeah.
of just giving him those little jumpers. And he still got a couple of them, granted, but you saw the focus just swallow him up, make them kick it out, and make them start shooting threes. And I think they didn't need a three until the third quarter. And they shot, I think they only made two or three before the garbage time came in the last couple minutes of the fourth quarter. But like
Yeah.
during the competitive part of the game there for a minute, it wasn't pretty. And it allowed us to, once we started slowing Embiid down and forcing the outside shot, that first couple minutes of the third quarter, we just went red hot and put that game away, really just out of control for them because they couldn't hit a three to keep themselves in it.
Yeah. I thought that Cantor played better than people give him credit for. The thing about Cantor is when you want to talk about low key MVP this season, Cantor's been a double double every single night. He's playing better defense than people think. And how many games do you think we would win if we didn't have Cantor right now? My
It was,
God, like we don't have another true center when it comes down to it. So at the end of the day, like you're looking at Cantor and these games against guys like Embiid should be wearing him out. I'll tell you the other thing that was great was getting Covington back was huge this week. When you don't have Derrick Jones Jr., and obviously you already have Dame on the floor, so you're having a struggle defensively a little bit. When you don't have Derrick Jones Jr., that's one thing, but without Covington, we look like it was a bad, not a good defensive team at all. And I don't think that surprised anyone, but
no, for sure. But it was enough. I mean, with 9 guys to walk into Philly, who've only lost one game at home all year, mind you, and we can sit here and talk all day about how Seth Curry barely played and Ben Simmons was out. I don't want to hear it. We didn't have CJ Nurk with a Dame, a plethora of players. There's no
seriously,
excuse to lose that game.
right?
I don't know. They didn't look like they had a sense of urgency. I didn't see them attacking the rim very much, which is kind of their game.
Yep.
And I just wonder if they sat on us a little bit. And then mentality wise, they were coming in like, it's just the Blazers. They got 9 guys. And
Yeah.
you talk about playing against these young kids and guys that don't get a lot of minutes. And this is what can happen to teams sometimes. We've been victim of it with it. We talked about the OKC game. And one particular player, man, you know who I'm going to bring up. It just had himself a debut. I mean, granted, it wasn't his official debut, but it was his debut on the big stage.
It was for us. CJ Ellaby, baby.
CJ Ellaby.
Yeah.
The fro, man. First off, we got to talk about his hair. I don't know. It gives him an extra 7 inches of defense. Like he's trying to look over the mop on his head. I mean, but when we talk about the youngest, man, the hustle, just every single play, it's not smooth. All right. It doesn't look smooth, but it looks urgent. Like, and that we talked about it all week. The entire theme of our pod the last couple weeks really has been energy and how some of these starting guys for a while there just haven't had the energy, especially on defense. And Dame kind of called them out. And I think you're starting to see the hustle plays more and more. I'm seeing more of Carmelo recently. I'm seeing, obviously we talk about Cantor and people want to give him, all the grief in the world. I saw a lot of people on Twitter just complaining that he was letting Embiid shoot right over him. But you have to understand that's part of Stott's defense is drop back center. He's supposed to drop back into the paint and allow these guys to take these shots or be ready to converge.
And he's clogging for cutters too. Like he's stopping people from cutting behind him. Like that's just the defense. I agree.
Right. But the amount of energy that we're seeing from these guys has been just awesome. And CJ Ellaby, man, what's your take on that kid? Are we ready to move on to CJ 2.0 and get rid of the other CJ?
So
keep a CJ still?
Yeah, I think I'd pump the brakes a little bit. And the reason I'd say that is he scored 15. It looked really smooth. But I think the kid's got a super high ceiling. He reminds me of Anthony Simons. He reminds me of he looks different than Gary Trent. It looks different when he's got the ball in his hands. He looks very fluid. But again, that was really his first opportunity at big minutes, and it came in a game where he just busted it wide open. I'd really like to see more of him and Naz. I want to see minutes from them, and I think that they deserve it. We talk about Hood all the time on the podcast. In the last few games, Hood's playing 30 plus minutes. Let's give some more of those to CJ Elleby. Let's give him 15 minutes and see what he can do. This season is a bide our time season, right? We still want to make the playoffs. We still want to be above 500. We want to do all those things, but we also have to evaluate talent on the roster. And in order to do that, we got to see these kids get minutes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Hoodie at the before now in the trade deadline, because you and I are big trade Hood guys, but
I just think he's as far as contract goes and what somebody can get back with. I mean, you know, you're not going to complain if you get Rodney Hood in a trade just to sit around for a year. But yeah, I agree with you. I'd rather see Nas start in situations where Jones or company over Hoodie any day at this point. And I'm not gonna. I was kind of joking. Of course, we gotta, you know, pump the brakes a little bit on CJ Elleby. I do agree. If there's a situation where he should get more minutes in the game, I want to see him get those minutes. Didn't even touch the ball in the New York game, or at least not meaningful minutes. So again, he had his moment in the sun, and that's because we only had 9 active players. And it's great to see him come out and look like he belongs.
He does. He looked confident.
That was the biggest thing for me, is he felt like, we talked about that, the big C word at this point, that big C word, and that's that confidence that these guys are, you know, coming out and we're going to go play these minutes and we're going to play tough. And they did play tough against a really good team. It's not like Tobias Harris didn't get his 30 plus minutes. It's not like Embiid didn't play 35 minutes. I mean, a lot of their main guys were out there for most of that game, and they have a really good second unit worth of guards with guys like Milton and Maxey and some of these other guys. And we held our own against them. And a lot of that was because of just straight up energy. I mean, that's what won that game, the turnovers, the fast break points. The whole movement between Elleby and Anthony. It was
the effort we questioned last week was kind of the reason we won a couple of the games this week. And so good on the Blazers and good on Stotts, right? Like, I mean, you probably have a lot you want to say on him this week, but I thought Stotts did a hell of a job getting these young kids ready to go. And on a road trip, that's hard, man. These guys can come out flat sometimes. That did not happen except for in the Milwaukee game. And that's a big credit to Stotts.
Yeah, the Milwaukee game, and honestly today, I was not impressed today. So
go through today.
We lost, which is fine. You know, we went 2-2 on the road trip at this point in the last week, I should say, and you're cool with that, but it just didn't look good. I mean, Dame, obviously, I mean, he was limping the entire time. He played, but you could continuously see footage of him on the sideline getting the massage on the hip. It wasn't even it was like he had the whole strain with his abdomen. But his hip was bugging him like most of the game. They were continuously massaging him. He looked meh. He didn't look explosive. His jumper was meh. He still scored and he still set guys up, but he just didn't look like himself. And I saw a lot of turnovers from him specifically, and really the entire team was sloppy with the ball. I didn't see that energy. We talked about the energy, and I didn't see it as much in this game. I saw them get a lot of breaks go their way. Granted, there was a lot of, you know, balls that bounced towards them. We missed a couple free throws. Terrible night from the free throw line. I don't remember what the actual percentage was, but it wasn't good. And on their end, when they would miss a free throw, I think they got at least 2 or 3 offensive rebounds on missed free throws. And that's an energy thing right off the bat. There's no excuses for it. I don't know. It's funny because fans, what you were talking about with the resting everybody for Philly, because we're not going to get destroyed by Philly, and everybody on social media, most of the guys I was seeing, a lot of the Blazer analysts were all like, "Yeah, rest the guys and get ready to take on the Knicks." Well, thank God they didn't, and they played with energy against Philly, and they came out. They didn't look good against the Knicks.
Yeah, I know. It's weird, man. Honestly, but sometimes we win games we shouldn't, and we lose games we shouldn't too. The Knicks are no slouch. I mean, they're a good offensive team. Yeah, we've talked about offensively and defensively that they've improved massively under Thibodeau this year. I don't think it surprises anybody. It does surprise us when the Blazers come out flat, but when Dame is banged up like that, okay, so we have 2 days off, or well, almost 2.5 days off now, because the game is over at, it was over at like noon or 1 o'clock Pacific time. The guys get to travel home. We have a few home games coming up. I think you'll see better energy this week. I just think today was just one of those trap games and we never, ever play well when it's an early matinee game. Remember that Spurs game a couple weeks ago? Same thing. We come out flat. It's just a weird, like, we're not
Mm-hmm.
for that, I feel like.
Yeah, it's rough for us because realistically, when you think about it, that's what 1 o'clock for New York. That's not that's this is an early morning for us.
Yeah.
It's 10 o'clock for our guys, like mentally. So
Yeah, it's just different. So anyway, we got blitzed a little bit. Let's talk about the week as a whole. So, and then we'll go on to the future game, the games that are coming up, and we'll just do a quick like what we expect. But moving into this, looking at this week, there was I mean, we're still really banged up. We still have no Derek Jones Jr. Covington's working his way back off of injury, and Dame is kind of nicked up as well. You love what you see out of the young guys. You love what you see out of Anthony Simons has played limited minutes, but he's looked really good. Like he got 14 points on 19 minutes the other night. That's pretty damn good, dude.
it's clutch too.
Yeah.
Like it. For the record, Jones did play today. He played off the bench,
That's
so
right.
he's back now. He didn't
That's
play
right.
much. He didn't look good. He just looked again non-energetic. But
Sure.
yeah, I agree with you. I mean, this week, especially with all the injuries, these other young guys, we've talked about it with each individual game, but as a whole, I mean, yeah, you'd want to talk about Anthony Simons, just A+ stuff, in my opinion. Again, raw, not a great defender, missing a lot of passes he's trying to make, but he's starting to make better decisions with the ball in regards to making the pass, maybe not executing it.
Yeah.
But the shooting and the percentages, I mean, with the minutes that he's getting are getting much, much better. I mean, he's starting to do the whole dribble, step back, hit a three. He's creating shots for himself. I've been really impressed with him, honestly, out of any of the other young guys right now. I mean, I know both Nas and LB had their one game and this, their one moment to shine, but this was Anthony's third year. This was what we wanted him to be and to do. He's kind of been forced into it a little more than I think we expected to have him play this year. We still knew he'd get his time, but it was supposed to really be Trent and Hood and those guys running that second unit offensively, and then of course Carmelo. But with everything being forced around and guys getting moved, he's been playing a lot more than we thought he would play, and he's looked awesome.
Yeah. I really like the other thing that people aren't really, I don't know if it's catching up on Blazers Twitter or not, is Robert Covington is hitting a lot more threes, and he's hitting them with a lot. He's hitting the average that we expected him to this year. That's going to be huge. And I don't think people understand that Robert Covington's three ball is probably one of the most important things to our offense clicking, both not only right now, but in the playoffs as well. So if you want to talk about translating for the rest of the year, if Covington keeps up this shooting, we're going to be deadly. Seriously.
Oh, that was my next point I was going to make was Covington's improvement from three. You're seeing him hit not only the wide open shots, but he's starting to make some contested shots. The guys kind of running out on him to get in his face. We talk about confidence. It's the theme of the pod.
Yeah.
And he just looks like a guy who's starting to figure out when he should be taking a shot, and he's starting to hit it with just more, I don't know, like just more oomph. Like it looks good. He looks like he's expecting it to go in now. You can sometimes tell when a guy expects it to go in because they start backing up to get ready to get back on defense.
Yeah.
Sometimes they know it's going to miss. They'll kind of go up to see if they can get a rebound or help out in the up. And he's been just looking good when it's coming out of his hands.
Yep.
And you're right. You can't say it enough how important that is. Why he was specifically brought in was to hit the three ball when it gets open, because Dame and CJ get doubled, or the screen game. They're going to get all the attention. Covington and Jones are going to get the open shots, and they have to hit them. It's been we talked about it all year. And finally, this week, I don't know if the concussion getting hit on the head like fixed them, or maybe the mask. Maybe he just
the mask.
Clear.
He's got a sight built into it on the right eye. It's like a little laser sight.
Yeah, he's got some kind of bio crazy bionic eye now. I don't know. The mask is Mask Rocco. I gotta find a good name for him. I have to figure out a good name. I'll find something. But yeah, I agree. This last week especially. I mean, I haven't got the percentage for him. I should go back and kind of take a peek at his last couple games, but it's been awesome to see. And especially with Jones being hurt, Trent's out there. He's going to take a lot of threes, obviously. Carmelo's kind of been forced in action. He does his darndest. But for Rocco to start hitting threes and to start getting to that 10, 12-point range now, most of it coming on threes is going to be huge for fans to watch, because that's it. You're right. I mean, that's what's going to make this offense click, especially when you get CJ and Nurk back.
It'll take pressure off of guys too. It'll take pressure off of Dame. It'll take pressure off of Cantor. It'll open things up for Gary Trent or CJ, whoever's playing shooting guard at that time. I really think that Rocco's defense has been rock solid, man. Like, nobody can fault his defense. People score on him. It is the NBA. They score on everybody. There's not a single defender who doesn't get scored on all the damn time. But when you're looking at our defense, it's been a lot better when he's on the floor and he's helping because Cantor is going to anchor. He's going to back up. He's going to be back to the basket trying to help people clog that lane. Covington's job is to kind of mess with the best scorer that they have, lock down that best scorer, and Derek Jones too. And we've been missing him. He will work his way back from injury this week, and I think we'll be better, man. I really think this is going to be a good week for us.
Well, they're surviving right now, and that's
Yeah.
all you can ask. And Covington's shooting has been a big part of that, and same with Trent. I mean, I think 3-point ball, we're gonna live and die with it all year. And when it's hot, it's on. I mean, that's how we won the 2 games with the kind of injuries that we had, was just seeing the improvements and the consistency from guys like Trent and Covington. So that's been huge.
Yeah.
So the next thing I kind of want to talk about, and this
Yeah.
is it's been a big one all over the social media. I mean, especially throughout the week, and I think
Sure.
right after the Milwaukee game, obviously, that was when it was at its worst. I think just the peak, but the Fire Stotts crowd. I want to ask you, man, what's your opinion on Stotts? Because
Yeah.
I think it's all over the place. Everybody's kind of like, when they win, it's like, oh, Stotts is so cool. He just won a game with 9 guys. What are you talking about? Look what he's done with the young guys. When he loses Stotts defense, he doesn't do anything. He doesn't make adjustments. It's back and forth, man. What's your opinion?
Yeah. So my opinion is really simple, right? And it's as simple as this. You have a great player in Damian Lillard. All the guys seem to love Stotts. He's a player's guy for the most part. Yes, the defense is not great, but here's my point with the defense. Covington is a plus defender, and everyone else on this team right now, Gary Trent's probably a plus defender. Everyone else is a negative, right? I understand that our defense was kind of bad when we had Nurkic and we had CJ and everybody was healthy, right? But at the end of the day, if you look at Tom Thibodeau, all the teams Tom Thibodeau's had that have been very good defensively have had good defenders that could switch, that could play. They've had versatility. This Blazers team has almost no versatility, and Stotts still gets everything he can out of this little lemon that he's squeezing juice out of. In my opinion, the Blazers defense could get worse if you fire Stotts. I do think that he limits it a little bit, but he is responsible for our offense always being prolific, and he is a great offensive coach. So, yes, I understand that you want to fire Stotts, but no, I wouldn't screw up the Dame relationship because Dame loves this guy. He's gone to bat for him several times with Neil in the front office. I don't think that it's Stott. I don't think the defense is all Stott's problem. I don't think we have good defenders on this team, and we have brought a few guys in this year, and they need time to develop. But I don't think it's Stott's fault.
So you don't think a lot of this has to do with the way he runs his defense, the schemes going into zone, or the drop back center, which has been the Stott staple as far as defense goes, and how bad we are up at the perimeter, working our way around screens. And I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just asking you because for
No.
me, it's a little bit of both, because I still think that guys tend to get sucked into the middle and they don't communicate enough with getting back out onto the open shooters. A lot of people think that's on Stotts, but you got to, basketball more than any sport is realistically 5 guys versus 5 guys. Like, the coaches do a little bit. Of course they do. I mean, they scheme, they position rosters, they come up with some offensive plays, and sure, they'll transition on defense and start telling you, hey, you gotta go cover this guy, make sure you help and double this guy. But at the end of the day, realistically, it's 5 guys versus 5 guys. They're playing their own game out there. There's only so much coaching that happens. And I know I'm probably gonna piss off all sorts of people by saying, oh, you have no idea what you're talking about. You clearly don't know the game. Maybe not, but I think at the end of the day, it's part Stotts, but it's also guys like Covington and Jones learning where to go and how to rotate, and the lack of communication. You obviously can't trust Cantor down low. I mean, we talked about how he tries. I mean, it's not like it's a lack of effort with his part. He gets some blocks. He's actually really sustaining a career high in average blocks per game in these starting minutes he's getting, but he's not known as a defender. And so you're going to have a lot of collapses right now. I mean, we've seen Covington individually look fine. Jones, hit or miss. He's athletic and long, and it lets him make up for a lot of the mistakes that he tends to make. He can recover fast. But people want to knock Stotts all day. You know how hard it is, I imagine, to play defense when you don't have any defense from your 2 guards. Not just your 2 guards, but your 2 star players. Yeah. They get beat all the time off of the screen, and they allow so much penetration that I don't know if anybody could play defense. I don't think anybody could coach it right now on this team. I don't think it's all Stotts, but
yeah. I think the drop coverage, you brought up a good point with the drop coverage. I do think the drop coverage is a little bit outdated, right? It's probably not the best fit for the modern NBA, but you can, okay, think about the three centers we've had over the last 3 years: Nurkic, Whiteside, and Cantor. All three are big and slow and lumbering for the most part. Nurkic is the most athletic of those three, and he's huge, right? If we had a guy like Zach Collins anchoring the defense, or a guy like Rudy Gobert anchoring the defense, they might be able to work their way out to the perimeter more and be more switchable. We don't have a lot of switchability. That's what you and I were looking forward to this year
Yeah.
with Covington and with Jones, right? Because people are they're gonna hunt Dame and CJ. They're gonna try to get Dame and CJ on them, and then they're gonna work their way in because they know that Cantor's at the rim and he's not gonna help defend. So I don't see it, man. We don't have the personnel, and people can sit here and say that you can do different stuff. I do think that the drop coverage is outdated, and I would like to see Stotts have different monkey wrenches, but at the same time, like, it's just he's working with the best personnel he's got, man. Like, you got to run your offense and defense with based on the players that you have.
Yeah, I agreed 100%. I mean, we see it with what he's doing with the young guys. I know that's this week especially, it's been highlighted, so it's easy to call it up right now, but it's been historically. I mean, look what Gary Trent was, a second round guy who really wasn't getting a lot of minutes, and Stotts tends to be really slow with developing the young guys throughout the career he's had with the Blazers. They don't get a lot of minutes typically. But that just goes to show you the work that goes on in the practice and what he does with these guys. And a lot of it's Dame's leadership and guidance, sure. But Stotts is historically pumping out guys, late round guys, because we've been playoff team every year. You're not getting a high lotto pick, not very often. So,
Yeah.
and we're seeing them continue to produce. And to me, I think that's the biggest factor into keeping Stotts. I mean, you could fire him and you could hope somebody else comes back in, but the risks just aren't worth the reward. I mean, you could easily say, oh, we could have a guy come in and play defense and that's fine.
Yeah.
Like maybe they'll be better. But then you risk pissing off Dame. You risk the offense starting to like lumber down because of how good of an offensive coach that Stotts is.
The locker room chemistry, right? We've talked about for years. This team has no trouble in the locker room ever. Maybe that's Dame as a leader, but it could be Stotts too. He does a fantastic job of working young guys into the rotations. I understand that the defense is what you want to fire somebody for, but you have to look at the good things Stotts has done. We've never missed the playoffs. Like, you want to fire a guy who's never missed maybe one time, the Dame year, the year we drafted Dame. So 2012, we might have missed the playoffs, or 11-12. But the dude is a great coach, and you cannot dismiss him just because our defense isn't good, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the defense obviously needs to be better if you're going to compete for a championship. At the end of the day, like, this is not a championship caliber defense.
No.
But we've talked about, especially the last 2 years. I mean, the chemistry, and it's when these guys, when you're missing 3-4 starters and now bench guys who are they're having to come up and play with guys like Dame. Even when this entire team is healthy right now, I mean, we talked about you're adding Jones and you're adding Covington now into the starting lineup. Nurk, you're essentially adding him back because he didn't play at all last year.
Yeah.
I mean, except for the bubble, and now he's trying to play with Covington and Jones, and CJ and Dame know exactly what each other's going to do. Like, they're on the same page. They're able to kind of rotate and help and switch up the top with the best of them. But you look, you have an entirely new bench unit, not necessarily made up of the best defenders as is, which is fine. Your bench typically isn't made up of your best defenders. I mean, your bench is it's meant to hold a lead and try to build upon a lead and make heroic comebacks great. But so you're not picking guys to play defense on your bench.
The big knock that you and I see on Twitter and Blazers Edge all the time is that we don't have a championship level defense, right? But since 2014, which was like the first, that was like a Kawhi Leonard Spurs team, think about the best defender on all of those teams. So like Kawhi, and then you have this crazy Golden State run where they have either Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, or they have KD. And then it's been a LeBron team. The only team that didn't was the 2019 Warriors, and they had Kawhi again. So it's like every team has a great – what's that?
Oh, so you meant the Raptors?
Or the Raptors, yeah, sorry, the Toronto. So basically, like, if you look at these teams, all of them have a fantastic wing defender, a guy who can shut down a LeBron or a KD, or at least go head-to-head with them for an entire matchup. We don't have anything like that. And if you want to kill Stotts for that, you can, for sure. Like, you can murder Stotts. But if you fire him, I think you're going to have more problems than fans anticipate, especially with A, chemistry, and B, offense. Defense might get better, but...
It's a perfect point. I mean, you look at the personnel. if we had, let's say we had, obviously, well, Kawhi Leonard, anybody has Kawhi Leonard, they're gonna have a shot. But let's say we had like Draymond Green,
Yeah.
or we had a Klay Thompson. If we had one of those big, just really good defending guys in Stott's system, I guarantee you we have a better defense.
Yeah.
I think these guys, they're just trying to figure it out, just as much as chemistry than anything right now. But B, it's just they're not. Covington's a good defender. He's long, he's big, but he's not a lockdown defender. He plays good and he has his spurts, but he also, you know, is dealing with trying to go back and forth to help out in the middle and get back out onto the perimeter. And same with Jones. Jones is young, granted,
Yeah.
and there's a reason that Miami didn't play him almost at all in the finals last year, because he can't be relied upon consistently to go out there and play lockdown defense against the best people, like against the LeBron James. It's fine for what we have right now, and you would think that they can do just enough to keep us in games and get just enough stops and get just enough hands and faces to go down and have CJ and Dame continue to take over games.
Yes.
But I agree. There's no elite defender on this team. There's no Iguodala out there shutting down LeBron to get, 2 championships. It's just
Oh,
it's not
Iguodala's a great point too. I mean, Golden State had him too for most of their run. Like, it's just crazy. They had great defenders.
Yeah, so maybe, I mean, it's time will tell. I think when we get to see these guys play together and we start getting healthier, late season is when we're going to really see what this team is made of. We're floating around at 4th right now in the West, maybe 5th after today, but
Depends on
you're
how it shakes up.
floating and you haven't had Nurk and CJ. When you get everybody together and you get that string late in the year, early playoffs, when you get to that first round, that's where you're really going to see whether or not Stotts needs to go, because it's going to be tough to get another first round loss. Hopefully that's not the case, but for being realistic, if you get anywhere between really the 6th or 7th seed, obviously against the Lakers is going to be terrible. But if you're in that 6th to 8th seed, I mean, what do fans expect? You're going against one of the LA teams, or probably Utah at this point, and that's not going to end well for you. You can sit here and talk about the playoff series all we want, but chances are slim. And then it's going to be, well, Stotts lost in the first round again. Well, here I am, Anthony, right now, Rip City Real Talk, telling you that's not a good expectation. Fire him because he loses.
We're on the same page there, man, for sure. And I think a lot of the Blazers edge people need to chill out, because they watch games and they get frustrated. But if you want to blame defense, you can blame as much of that on Neil O'Shea and the personnel that we've had, because you would have had to have traded CJ. You would have had to have you'd have to surround Dame with 4 switchable 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" guys like Draymond Green. And you would need Dame surrounded just like they did with Steph Curry for years. You would need good shooters and switchable defenders. So I just don't see it, man. I don't get it.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, this is gonna be a rough year already, because you're in the middle of a pandemic. There's no fans. The energy's already low. The chemistry's already going to be tough because you're mixing so many new faces into a pot right now, and then half of them are getting hurt. It's not a good year to base anything off Stotts right now. I mean, he did just take us to the Western Conference Finals, and I'm sick and tired of seeing people, well, we got lucky because CJ was so lucky in the Denver game. No, you took Denver to 7 games and you beat Denver at their house on road. That has something to do with Stotts. You also took, OKC didn't have anybody, and George was hurt, and no, you took down 2 friggin' MVP candidate players.
Yeah.
Again, it's just, that's a lot of coaching that comes into that. And he had to make so many adjustments with that 2 years ago, with having to start Cantor and Cantor being banged up last year. He's having to run out one side, who's a liability. I don't know, man.
Western Conference Finals with Cantor. That was the thing people aren't giving Stotts credit for. We didn't have we didn't have Nurkic during that series either, and that would have been huge.
Yeah, so it is what it is. But I was just curious what your take was on the Stotts thing. It's all the uproar right now.
Yeah, I got one for you.
When we won against the Wizards in Philly, but still.
I know we've kind of gone for a minute, and I know we got to wrap, but I got a question for you before we go.
Let's do it.
Okay, here's your choice. You have to pick one, and the other one walks away immediately. You can choose right now between Anthony Simons or CJ Elleby to be your guard of the future. The other one walks. Which one are you picking right now, based on what you've seen?
It's tough because Elleby's I would call him more of a forward than I would a guard, but I'd keep Anthony. I'm sorry. Okay. I just think the only reason I say that is because I feel like we're going to continue to get guys in free agency like Jones and Covington. I still think Nas has a good future with this team
Sure.
because his contract shouldn't be too much just based on the fact that he hasn't had a chance to showcase his skills yet. And
Yeah.
Ellaby is bigger. He's that kind of a role.
Okay.
To me, Anthony's the role that we need. We need a scoring guard that can come out and be effective. And as Ellaby looked all right, granted, but Anthony's showing me now in these 20 minutes a game that he's really getting, that he's starting to get that average up. He looks good. I would like to see him play a little better defense, but I don't care. I mean, we need the Jason Terry. We need the Crawford. We need that guy to come in here, that little combo guard that can just erupt for 20 something points in a game and keep you in contention if you're losing or keep a lead. And I think that Anthony's starting to become that guy. I mean, I would love to see what he can look like with Trent together in that second unit versus, Trent starting and things like that. But I really think that he's earning Stott's respect. He's getting the minutes now, and he's looked good. And that's, to me, that role is more important than the wing position going forward. I know it seems weird to say because wing's the most important in the NBA, but I feel like we have that, or we can get that, if whether it be trading Trent or CJ or whatever the case is. That to me is easier to go get a guy that's like Ellaby's level.
Yeah.
It's harder to find a combo guard that can come in and give you that kind of scoring night in, night out from that backup guard position, something we haven't had for a long time, and we have house money right now with Anthony. I'm keeping him over Ellaby.
Okay, so next week, I'm going to tee up something to tease the fans for next week. Next week, you're gonna have a big long segment. We're gonna watch this week, and then we're gonna talk about trade CJ next week. So we'll spend 5 or 10 minutes talking about whether or not, just based on what you're seeing out of Gary Trent Jr. and some of these lineups, whether or not you feel comfortable, either more comfortable with trading CJ or a lot less comfortable with trading that other superstar that we have.
Yeah, it's fine by me. I mean, we've talked about it a lot outside of this podcast.
Yeah.
And you see it all over the Twitters and the Facebooks and the Bleacher Reports and all that good stuff. So I'm sure it's going to be a big topic for as long as CJ's on our team. So
for sure,
we need to talk about it, but we can definitely load them.
You ready for the picks? I'm gonna hand you the games. Okay, you tell me the pick. All right, so we play the Magic at home on Tuesday after 2 days rest.
I don't know enough about the Magic this year.
I think we win that game at home.
Gordon sucks, Danny Meringue.
Yeah, jeez Louise.
But I think the Magic's a winnable game. Like Vucevic is always tough. It's gonna be a tough matchup for Kanter, but he's a down low guy. I think they don't have the firepower to keep up with Dame.
76ers on Thursday after another 2 days rest. So we go to Sixers at home.
We're about to get blown out. They got embarrassed. It was all over the national news feed. They're gonna have Ben Simmons back.
Okay.
It was still a little banged up. No, this isn't the heroic 9 coming out here. This is gonna be bad. I'm telling you right now, they're not gonna let that sit. So not looking forward to that.
This is my favorite game of the week, and this is my favorite game that I'm going to get to watch because we do not watch them. I have not watched them all year. The Cleveland Cavaliers come into Portland and play us on Friday in a back-to-back Thursday, then Friday Cavs. What do you think?
Cavs are playing good, man.
They're good.
They're good bigs, and they have depth. I don't know what's going on with Kevin Love. I don't think he's playing. Larry Nance has been banged up.
Yep.
Drummond is on the trade block, so he's probably mentally just all over the place, but he's still a dominant center. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's a loss. I think it's close. It's going to be a very fast-paced game, and I feel like it's going to be a very high-scoring game. They have two really good guards.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. I mean, I'm interested to see the Cavs because we've watched a lot of teams this year, and I've seen Philly. I've seen a lot of Milwaukee's ball, but I have not watched Cleveland, and I keep hearing about them on Bleacher Report. I keep hearing about them on, the NBA sites, but I haven't really watched the product in action. So I'm excited to see it. I think if we go 500 or better again, it's a good week. We play the Mavs on Sunday, but we'll recap that one probably the week after, depending on how it falls out.
Recap the Sunday games. Yep. So that'll be those three. Yeah, I mean, this one worries me a bit just because I don't know enough about them. I think Philly just stomps on us. I'm sorry. They got embarrassed, and it's going to sit with them with a Ben Simmons coming into play. But I don't know, man, Cleveland, again, young team. Young teams worry me, and they're playing good in the East. They've been playing steady. They've been consistent. I think they're in playoff contention. So I don't know. Sexton could just erupt at any point in time. Garland, if he plays, is a good young guard.
Yes, he is.
Have decent. They don't have a lot outside of that scoring wise. So
No, they have
it's
a
a matter.
couple good defenders though, like Torian Prince and Chetty Osman are both like decent wing defenders, so they do have people they can kind of match up with. Like the Cavs are better than people think if you're a casual fan.
Yep. So that'll be interesting. I don't know. I mean, obviously, you take two of those. You got to beat the Magic. You have to beat the Magic. I think
Yeah.
the starting week off,
Oof.
you can't lose that game, and then expect to win against Philly and Cleveland. So yeah. I mean, I would like to sing 1 and 2 is probably my prediction.
So we got to be on the record here. Who do you got winning tomorrow for the Super Bowl? Because fans are going to ask us.
I'm going Chiefs. I mean,
Okay.
Brady's been there 100 times. The rest of his team hasn't. The Chiefs are coming back with basically the same roster. They were just there last year. Mahomes is still playing at a Mahomes level. We saw what the Chiefs did to Tampa earlier in the year, and obviously that could change, but it wasn't pretty. I don't think they can keep up. I think their defense will get to Mahomes, but he makes enough plays. There's just too many weapons that Tampa can't slow down. And Brady will get his, but they're still playing against a team that just went to the Super Bowl last year. So I've got Chiefs all the way. I'm going 31-20, 31-27.
Oh, wow. 31-28 is my score. I got Chiefs barely breaking 30. I think people are expecting a 40-42 Super Bowl, and that's just not going to happen.
Gonna happen.
Yep. All right, man. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think this is it. This is a good segment. It was we kind of hoped that we get Mr. Meringue on the pod, but that's all right. Hopefully we'll get something scheduled with somebody here. We'd like to start getting some other guests on the show. But we're going to continue to do our weekly recaps. We appreciate the support. We've said it 100 times. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. Follow and like us on Facebook. Help us out. Continue to share our videos. We appreciate everybody who has.
Yeah.
I'm going to probably start doing some fun little mini contests throughout the next couple of weeks. So if you share or tag friends, just keep in mind you might have the ability to get some more free stuff. So keep it up. We appreciate everybody. Craig, I will see you next week, my friend. Hopefully we get on one of those fun wins and we can continue to keep up the 500 or better.
I hope so, man. Look out for some big moves this week, guys. And with the health of the team coming back, we're expecting good things. So let's hope for it. All right, man.
All right.
Super Bowl.
Work out. Appreciate it.
Peace.